Welcome to the gathering at the Cosmic Fire Summit, where we've invited shamanic earth-based healers, teachers, thought leaders, and allies to light the way into our future. During these times of great change and transformation, it's important for each one of us to find our own courageous solutions for the problems of today's world. As we gather around the cosmic fire, wisdom and medicine will be shared for creating holistic health and well being, harmonious living, real sustainability, and the potential for both personal and global change. The gathering at the Cosmic Fire Summit is brought to you by Shamans Directory, an online global platform for shamanic earth based services. At Shamans Directory, we believe that it's time to bring shamanic earth based wisdom and medicine to the forefront of people's minds when considering our overall health and well being and the future of our planet. I'm Wake, one of your hosts at the Cosmic Fire, and I'm delighted to welcome Susan Mokelke, JD. Susan is the president of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. She's practiced shamanism since 1996, received her shamanic training with the late Michael Harner, and co-teaching with him for many years. She's the editor of the journal Shamanism Annual and has written extensively on shamanic methods. Currently, she teaches workshops for the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, including the 3-year program in advanced shamanism, and maintains an active core shamanic healing practice. Susan has a BS degree in biological science from USC and a JD from Loyola Law School of Los Angeles. Welcome, Susan, to the summit.
Thank you so much, Wake. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
The topic you suggested for today is shamanism for inspired change and transformation. What a beautiful topic. What brought you to that topic, Susan?
Well, I think it's personal experience in some ways, and then also, of course, we all know that our world is deeply in trouble in many respects. But after practicing shamanism for such a long time, I've discovered that the spirits, the helping spirits, which I'll talk about later, are very present when you are asking for help for these kinds of issues, both on the personal level and the larger issues. And I think that more than anything, it was the realization that shamanism is I would call it a basic human ability, human birthright, and that if we are going to help our world, we can't just do problem solving. It's very important to do problem solving, but we also have to improve ourselves. We have to have, I mean, I think of it sometimes as better people, but maybe it's saying more enlightened people. But in some senses, enlightenment is not the goal. The goal is really to be more effective people in the world, and then also to realize some very important shamanic concepts that will help us really connect with everything that is in this planet. And if you connect in that way, you are inspired to help. You want to help, and then the helping spirits help you help. So that's kind of it. But I've had a lot of personal experiences too, and any shamanic practitioner you talk with, I mean, I've had the privilege of teaching a lot of students, and I'm also inspired by their transformation and the choices and the maturity they start to show after they've been involved with the spirits for some time.
Susan, I know that you've been deeply involved with core shamanism and the work of Michael Harner. You've taken over the work, followed his guidance, made it your own. Tell us something about core shamanism. What is that, and what makes that different than shamanism itself?
Well, you can't talk about core shamanism without mentioning the late Michael Harner, and he was a an anthropologist, and he was also had been trained in archaeology, something people don't always know. But he was I would call him one of the icons of the 60s to me, because, we all know that a lot of change took place then, openings, etc. But at that time, he was involved with the shamanic peoples in South America, and had a very profound, life-changing experience with the Canibo people. He writes about it in his book, The Way of the Shaman. And that basically inspired him he realized then that shamanism had had some major things to teach us about, to teach all people um, about the way the world works and what we can do to help. And so when he came back from his work in South America, he started looking at shamanism and how you would start to get it out there. And so he did extensive traveling, research, spending time with shamanic peoples. And what he realized is that that there were commonalities, universal kinds of principles that almost all shamans at some level practice. They call them different names and had different ways they practiced them. But so he developed core shamanism, which is basically the common, universal, semi-universal practices that shamans practice worldwide, including the shamanic journey. And so he's widely credited with I'll call it the renaissance of contemporary shamanism, particularly bringing the shamanic journey back to the West. So the thing about core shamanism is that some people confuse it with what they call neo-shamanism. And neo-shamanism, basically, a lot of times neo-shamanism is more people, they have an experience with some indigenous, and they might take a certain ritual or whatever, and then they sort of kind of put things together in that way. But core shamanism is actually something brand new. It's not that, because he looked at the fundamentals, the universals, and realized that this was he called it, and I call it too, a human birthright, to be able to contact this spiritual dimension in a world that tends to be very unidimensional in terms of realities. And so he developed it from there. And then after that, started teaching these various methods. So the foundation teaches practices and methods, and we're extremely respectful of indigenous peoples' ceremonies, etc. So we don't use those unless for some reason they give us permission, and then we would do it in a specific instance. But this is something that is an independent spirituality. We connect people with the spirits. They then work with their spirits to learn, to know, to understand, to grow. So it's really a beautiful way to help all of us, and I would call it help us mature and become better people, more heartful people, more thoughtful people, but also helps us to solve problems, not only our own, but some of those that are facing our communities and the world.
I think part of core shamanism that I'm most intrigued about, Susan, is the part of the cosmology of the three worlds and the ordinary and non-ordinary realities. It seems like that's an important structure that you teach that allows the journey dimension or direction. Would you say that that's an important part of the teachings of core shamanism?
Well, I would say that that's an essential part. It's in some senses it's a part of the worldview. The idea of three worlds is recognized by shamans in many places, so that's not a brand new thing per se. But I think one of Michael Harner's geniuses in working with that is that he discovered that in what we would call the upper world and the lower world, there were fully compassionate, fully advanced spirits that did not have an agenda. They were not trying to persuade people to do anything. They were simply there to try to help relieve pain and suffering in the world. And so he in doing the journeys, the advantages of core shamanism is that first of all, it's accessible across cultures. You know, we've done many workshops now, Asia, Europe, all kinds of places, and it tends to work. The methods tend to work there for everybody. And then the other thing is that it can be learned relatively quickly. It's uh, it takes a while for you to become a really experienced and powerful shaman, but you can start and learn and do a lot of good for yourself and others, even from the beginning. And then the third thing, of course, is what you were sort of referring to, is the idea of using shamanism only for healing and for helping. And that was the issue of, so when we first start a program, we connect, our goal of our first workshops is to connect people with these powerful helping spirits of the upper and the lower worlds so that they can be protected. Now, the middle world has in some senses two dimensions. It has this ordinary reality aspect that you mentioned, and that's, you know, where if we wanted to discuss we could discuss volume here, and the volume could be measured, and we could agree on the volume. Non-ordinary reality is a non-consensual reality, meaning that your experience with that is your experience, that the spirits work with you in ways that you need versus, and so what I would experience in those realities would not be the same as what you would experience. But the commonalities would be that the spirits are helping spirits. They're very powerful. They have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to offer, and they will work very strongly with you if in your heart you want to help. So, three worlds, I think that is to me the beauty of and the reason why I would say that core shamanism is so um, valuable and powerful today. And this doesn't, of course, take away at all from any of the indigenous practices, but they have their own ways of contacting the spirits, and and their own ceremonies, etc. But this is for us to learn. This is for all of us to learn. So,
Susan, when you speak about powerful helping spirits, for those of us who aren't initiated into the practice or aren't experienced in the practice itself of journey in these worlds, is there a way you could describe, not to limit, but simply give a sense of what might a powerful helping spirit appear as? Um,
well,
are there examples you could give?
well, yeah, there are a lot of. So in both the upper and the lower worlds, which from a shamanic perspective, what we're talking about, these are filled with what we would call fully evolved or fully compassionate spirits, at least compared to us. I'm sure there are other realms. There's always more, but in they tend to appear to us either sometimes in the form of an animal. I think everybody has heard of well, not everybody, but most people have heard of the idea of a power animal. And that is really a powerful helping spirit that chooses a form. And this is again my experience and my words, but chooses a form that that provides some sort of power that the person needs. That it's connecting with what that person needs very personally. And so but it's a powerful helping spirit, and it can choose any form. And one of the exercises that's wonderful to do is if you receive a power animal, which is usually brought back by a practitioner to you, sometimes they come to you spontaneously, but usually it's brought back. And one way of doing that then we would have the person receiving the animal journey to that animal and ask, what did you come to help me with? Like, why are you a bear? Why are you a mouse? And so different rules apply there. So there are animals that appear in the forms of spirits that appear in the forms of animals. And then there are spirits that take what we might call human form, humanoid, Some people see non-human but humanoid sort of figures, or they get those as teachers. But most of us get, a regular teacher appearance, so very human-like, or angelic beings or things like that. But we call those teachers, and there is some difference between, um, I would say, the major difference. Like, I work with a lot of animal spirits, a lot of them, and then I have a single teacher. And that's just the way it worked for me. Some people would see spirits all in human form and others in animal form, but the teaching spirits tend to be, you tend to like go to them to ask for help. Animal spirits, you call them here. Now the teacher spirits will come here too. But anyway, it's a subtlety, but mostly that's the form they appear to us in. And you can find teachers in the lower world, and you can find um, animals in the upper world. So they sort of cross boundaries, but density, it has to do with density of the spirits in the upper and the lower worlds. So
Wow, you're getting to some fine tuning of the
yeah.
spirit world here. I like this because I was going to ask you
Uh-huh.
what might be the difference between a helping spirit, a compassionate
Hmm.
spirit that you could find in the upper and lower world. I think you've answered that, unless you'd like to say anything more about it.
Well, let me think if there's anything that's really important about it. But the most important part is that you connect with this spirit. It's important that the world that you find it in. It needs to be found in the upper and the lower worlds, and that's why our first work, our early work, is not just teaching people how to journey, but the first thing is to connect them with these spirits. Because the middle world, we're not going to talk a lot about that, but the middle world is, I'd call it a mixed bag. You know what I mean? There are definitely there are spirits here who help, but they still maintain some of the, I'll call it, human characteristics. They're not fully evolved. That doesn't mean they're not powerful, and it doesn't mean that you can't work with them. But we strongly encourage people not to work with any middle world spirits like that until they have mastered working with the powerful compassionate spirits. And then they can be totally trusted. Like they middle world spirits tend to have what I call agendas. So, again, we found that sometimes we've done too good a job not connecting people with middle world spirits, because some people then sort of get afraid. But actually, there's nothing to be afraid of. If you are powerfully connected with a helping spirit, you can move much more safely in non-ordinary reality or ordinary reality in this world. In fact, it's a little bit, it's not very safe. I mean, it's more dangerous. That's bad words to use, but it's more problematic. That's better. It's more problematic if you don't know anything about shamanism and you don't know the kinds of forces that you're working with. So we educate people about that, and people do very well. It's not a hard thing to understand. They do very well. So
Susan, it sounds to me like the Foundation for Shamanic Studies invites people into a safe place and gives guidance and direction on how to journey and how to reach these compassionate, helping spirits. So you serve so many people. Uh, do you find this especially relevant in these days? How would you say core shamanism applies especially now?
well, first of all, it gives the individual a very strong, I'll call it, protection. When you're connected, if you are, that's when shamanic healing is the sort of the other aspect. If you are whole in your soul, which is something shamans do, shamanic healing, and you have a connection with one of these powerful helping spirits, you have what you might call a spiritual immune system going for you. You're less subject to accidents, to illness, to whatever. You know, the spirits are not going to protect you, however, from lessons that you need to learn, that your soul needs to learn in this lifetime. But they will definitely help you and give you the power to go through a lot of them, but you have to do it yourself. So I would say that we spend so much time on this because that's the most important thing. Because in shamanic healing, it's the spirits that do the healing, but the shaman is an essential partner to the spirits there, because the spirits don't have their spirits. They don't have as strong ability to be here present in this reality without going through a practitioner, a shaman who brings them here. And so there's a kind of humility that develops too, you know, when you're practicing with the spirits, because if you do your job correctly, the spirits come and they do the healing, and you are an important, essential part of that, but you don't do it. And so it kind of helps with the whole ego trip thing, like, oh, I'm a great healer. That's why we don't call ourselves, at least in the foundation, we don't call ourselves shamans. We call ourselves shamanic practitioners. So, and it's the community that would name you a shaman if you start performing miracles of healing. So there, the advantages is, of course, are protection for the individual. And then beyond that, however, when you are connected with the spirits and you have an issue, it may be a personal issue, it may be something that you're concerned about in the world, you know, something like something local, like somebody is going to be cutting down a whole bunch of trees and you want to save the trees, kind of thing. Um, they provide some very creative possibilities for solutions, which you though have to enact in ordinary reality. So we're, I think that's another thing that sometimes people don't, especially when you're newer to the work. It's a partnership, and you as a practitioner are an essential part of that partnership. And the spirits do not tell you what to do. It's not like, oh, my power animal made me do it, kind of thing. You talk with them. They're just very wise beings. It's sort of like I went to a mentor, a human mentor. I would have a question maybe, and I would ask the mentor, and a good mentor would help me work through it, give me some ideas, but the decision would be my own. And that's the important thing too. You cannot neglect ordinary reality. Shamans, we talk about, Michael always said a shaman is a master of two realities. Well, at least two. And you have to take that seriously. So
I I refer now to something that I've heard you say, which is, we are not alone, you are not
mhm,
alone. With these
right.
helping, compassionate spirits, I believe the truth of that. You're never alone.
Right.
Is that how you see it?
Well, I think that, you know, Michael wrote an article on shamanic healing called We Are Not Alone. And he was referring to the spirits because, and of course, in the early days, you know, he was the first wave, you know. So, but what I've discovered more than anything is that has really been inspiring to me, but also very, I'll call it comforting, is that no matter what happens, the spirits are with me. They're with me. I can call on them. I've had, as all people have had, we've had moments of sadness and grief. And these days, a lot of my grief has to do with the suffering of the world, you know, our planet with which we are together, totally. Um, and so to me, no matter what happens, I can call on the spirits to help. Now, again, as I said, sometimes we need certain lessons. We need to have a certain amount of, I wouldn't call it necessarily suffering, but we create our own suffering in some ways by the way we handle things. But we do have loss. I mean, there's loss. I mean, you look, all you have to do is, I mean, if it's not personal to you, all you have to do is think of, maybe animals that you'd like to see protected, or you want to see the earth stay beautiful and natural and that kind of thing. And there's a lot of grief associated with that. And so working with the spirits, we can working with the spirits, they help to support, I would call it our emotional system, so that we can continue to work in spite of the fact that we should be comatose depressed. So, I shouldn't say should be, but you know what I mean. It's just people who are sensitive, we really need the spirits to help us and then give us hope. They give us hope in the sense that I can't tell you how many times I've had an experience of really working hard on a problem or an emotional issue or whatever, and feeling the presence of the spirits, and then suddenly realizing, oh, there's another path I can take. There's something more I can do here. So it is a beautiful dance, a partnership with the spirits. We when we're down, it's like having the best possible friend in the world. Except, of course, they're very profound that way. They're also funny too. They lighten me up sometimes. So, so,
It sounds like you
so
have such a rich. It sounds like you have such a rich life, Susan. Multidimensional, ordinary and non-ordinary,
right.
from different worlds. You have a lot of resources to bring to any issue, whether it be personal or client-based or even global. It's quite a set of um, a power matrix that you bring to most any situation.
Well, thank you. I do think that that's true. It's hard for me to imagine back before I connected with the spirits. I mean, that's the thing. You get so used to calling on them, and when you're first learning, I remember it took me a few. I mean, I don't know how long it took, but it took me a while when I was having difficulties or problems to realize, oh, I could ask the spirits about that. They're not going to tell me the answers, but they're going to give me the information that I need to go forward. You know, and you can not listen to them too, which is all right. If you consistently don't listen to them, they stop speaking to you. They don't, and not as a punishment, but because they really, if they have an agenda, it's to help alleviate pain and suffering, and they want to do that. And so, but I think that you're right that it is it's an amazing thing looking at the world, knowing that everything is alive and is inspirited. Even all of the human things we have made, you know, that everything is alive. It has a kind of soul or spirit. If it's in this reality, it has it. And that you can communicate with that, and that ask how you can help in some ways, And so some very profound learnings have come. We have a newer workshop called Shamanism for Inspired Local and Global Change. And the idea of that workshop is to help people who have already connected with the spirits, because they have prerequisites. They have to be able to journey and all of that. But to help them take a specific project and apply not only their ordinary reality knowledge, but the wisdom of the spirits to come up with an elegant solution that can be applied in ordinary reality. So you have to do it here. You don't ask the spirits to go change that. That's not the way the spirits work. The spirits work with you. Since we're both ordinary and non-ordinary reality beings, we have to master both of those. And so, people who I do know people who are newer to the work who will say, well, I asked the spirits to change that. And there are two issues with that. One is extremely permission and ethics, which are essential to our work that we do. And the second thing is that the better way of doing it, and the thing that everybody will learn more from, and the world will move forward, is that you ask the spirits for help and insight in how to work with this, and then you do your research. You say, what's been tried before? Like if it's a homeless issue, what's been tried? What seems to work? And then you ask the spirits, well, do you have any ideas? What more can I do? And then you put those together, and amazing things happen. Amazing changes happen because you're both working on them together, and you have that power and that wisdom from the spirits. So,
Well, Susan, you mentioned some world work or world issues. Are,
mhm.
is there any consideration of ethics there? Do I have authority to ask my compassionate, helping spirits to craft strategies for a more peaceful, enlightened, vibrant world? Are there any issues at all there?
Well, shamanic ethics, I'll just say really briefly, has to do with permission. Anything in this world, and I'm calling it to even in what we call inanimate things, at some level has spirit. And so before you can, I ask myself, if I do this, am I interfering with a person's soul? Am I interfering with their journey? So, for example, if you're doing problem solving, when we teach, we say don't pick something that involves that is about the other person, because you don't have permission to do any kind of work on that other person unless they've asked you or you've asked them and they give you verbal permission. And it's a very similar thing on the more global issue. So, and I've been working a little bit on that, trying to figure out, what is the extent of permission and how can you do permission. So say on the global level, you could, some people, I read about some people, this was back some years now, back, who asked the spirits to elect a certain person to power. No, 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 no. It's like, and so, but that doesn't mean that you can't help. And so, for example, uh, I had a student in one of my 3-year programs who was very um, moved by wanting to help when they were having all the fires in. This was the first wave of the fires they were having in Australia. We had some here too. And so she asked me about permissions and all of that. And I said, you can't go and put out the fire. You can't ask for rain. You can't do that. Well, what can you do? Well, I said, you can journey and ask what you can do. You can ask what you can do within the realm of permission. And so she journeyed actually to the land and the animals, and she asked, are there any animals that want help here? Do you want help, and what can I do to help you? And the land and this was actually, I thought, really beautiful. The land and the spirit said, well, you can sing to us. And so she did a bunch of, like a lot of journeys singing to the land and to the animals and to help them. And then that had two effects: that helped her, and that on the spiritual level, it provided support to what's going on there. And so you have to find ways, if you want to help, that don't interfere with what's going on here, because we are not wise enough to make these decisions. And I mean, if any of you want to know, I wouldn't say more detail, but at least have it written down on the foundation's website, shamanism.org. There's a tab called articles, and in that list there is one called shamanic ethics. Basically, it's the ethical practice of shamanism, and that explains a few of these things and why it's important. Because the one of the real, I'll call it a no-no for shamanic healing, is to do it without permission. And permission doesn't mean that you journeyed to their soul and asked, and their soul said that yes, because if it's a living person or a living being, it has to be, a being that's here. You have to connect with, you have to have verbal, so certainly a human, you have to have verbal permission. And so verbal in this reality permission, because we're both, you don't know what that person or that person's soul is trying to learn. So anyway, I could go on a long time about ethics, because I think that it's one of the things that's most crucial about, if you want to have a powerful shamanic practice, if we want to make a big difference in the world, we cannot decide for the world or for anything, what should be done, So we do work with natural disasters, of course, and then you can always journey there if you know how to do psychopomp, which is conductor of souls. You can do work there. There is a lot of work that you can do, but you are always skirting the edge of permission if you are deciding what's needed. So, for example, in the drought, you decide if you're deciding, well, we want to make it rain. Well, no, we don't. We want to go and help. We want to say, how can I help? That's within the realm of permission. So I could go on a long time, but I won't.
I really like I really like what you're or appreciate. I really
Mhm.
appreciate what you're sharing, Susan, because to me it gets a sense of how important it is to be supported in one's life and how much support there is within the Foundation for Shamanic Studies itself. That you've gone through these issues, you've had these experiences, you've taught students who have had issues come up and you dealt with them. So I what I sense is you're inviting people to have a deeper life and to engage in the trainings to be well supported and guided in that process, that they will not be alone, just as you feel. You
I think that that's a good statement of it. I would say that we're actually trying to help people we have truncated lives now if we're not connected with spirit. So it's a more complete life. So you actually are in touch with these sources of help, not only for yourself, but for whatever you decide to do for others. But it without it, honestly, I think that I don't see. It's hard for me to imagine how a person who's aware and sensitive can bear some of the things that are going on in our world now. The other thing that I've seen in shamanic work is that, we're dealing with the evolution of souls. In my mind, the, evolution of souls is that we are in such a big context. We do not, people get enmeshed in their own, you know, smaller problems. And that's not a bad thing because we have to deal with what's in front of us. And if there's illness, we got to deal with our families and all of that. So this is not a judgment on that. But if we understood, in some senses, what the ultimate process seemed to be, um, we would act differently. I think we would see it differently. So one of the things we do with in global change, and now I'm just doing an experiment now. I'm going to be teaching an in-person uh, um, shamanism for shamanism and personal transformation, and that's what we're talking about is applying some of these methods to your own life and your own issues so that you can evolve as a person, become more compassionate, become more aware of the context that we're in, and also understand this is again partly my philosophy, but because what I've seen in working with the spirits, but other people might see it differently, is that I've seen that every soul seems to have be born into this life, into a human body, to learn something and to give something. And so that's another reason why ethics are so important, is that we cannot prejudge for those souls. That's why if they ask us, we can help them. A person asks us, we can help them. If they don't ask us, then we can't interfere with their process. So souls are growing and evolving, and I think that ultimately, and that's what I've written about in the article, I think that I'm going to share with people or the gift people is that problems are accelerating and appearing faster than we can possibly deal with them. And so we have to step back and not just keep, throwing water on the fire kind of thing. We have to step back and say, why are all these fires occurring in the first place? And so what's the human contribution? What's my contribution to that? How can being a better, more sensitive person, like I have the most difficult time now, sometimes, even trimming trees and things like that, in your yard, because they're beings. I know they're beings. And so you go out and you talk to them, you say, look, we got to, there's going to be fires. And, if we don't do this, I'm doing this to help you. Is that okay? And so you're, the richness of the life is one thing, but also that sense of seeing everything through the lens of souls and meaning is that's the only thing sometimes that really actually keeps me going, is that I know that I have a part to play in that, and I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter whether it's a big role or a small role, but you do everything you can to be a more compassionate, evolved person. I use the helping spirits as my role models because, humans, all humans, everybody born into a soul here has something that they're dealing with, or they wouldn't be here in this reality, and so, but the helping spirits, you can trust what they say, because their agenda is to help alleviate this pain and suffering and to help us. And so they're not going to be like your grandmother who's saying, you need to go to college. You know what I mean? This is what you need to do. They're going to say, well, let me help you decide what you need to do. And it's just so beautiful and enriching. And I think that to me, that's the essence. If we had more people, and that's why I'm encouraged by there's a lot of stops and starts with shamanism. Some of it's really accurate and good, and some of it's not so complete. But we're working our way toward, I think, this inspired human that cares about everything and works very locally, very personally, to try to make a difference, because they're that seed, they're that blossom, they're trying to help everything else bloom. And that's what the spirits want. So we have all of these people now who are connecting with spirits, who are doing work and doing projects. And we write about, last journal we wrote about a few examples of people who did local projects with gardens and things like that too. And by communing in ordinary reality, figuring out things, but also communing with the land, with the trees, the plants, to see how they could help, and to hear from the beings that you're trying to help. So anyway, it's to me, it opens up possibilities. I think that if the more humans who are exposed to this, the more souls that see themselves in this context, this big context, the world itself is a being. And sometimes we say, well, we're all interconnected, we're all one. We are actually literally the earth. It's just as my skin is me, my hair is me, and so the humans, the plants, the animals, the rocks, everything is the earth. And so what we do, if something's going wrong with your hair or your skin or whatever, you have to take care of it. And so that's how I see us working too. We're trying to get the humans to do right by the earth because it's us. So anyway, yeah.
What you're speaking about, Susan, is so inspiring, because you're talking about something living, something vibrant, something in, not a thing. I mean, each of us being beings, the world being,
Right.
and,
It's true.
and our relationship with everything. I know one of your strong core beliefs is all is one. And as we make our little change or work in ordinary reality, inspired by the helping spirits, I can imagine that there is a shift, and that it helps in the evolution of everything. Um, I'm wanting to get to your experiential offering, but I
Do you
love
have a
hearing you
question or
speak.
whatever? Yeah.
But I love hearing you speak, and so if there's anything
Well, if
more,
you have another question, I'll ask, I'll answer it, but or I'll try to at least give my opinion about it. But I'm fine to talk. I know that I'm fine to talk further, and then you can use what you think is most pertinent. And so if you have another question, let me know, and then I'll get to my little thing.
you're so elegant in your presentation. invitation, Susan, and uh,
Thank
and
you.
and so and so rich in your experience. I think you would be a tremendous guide to help us. It's easy um, to feel alone. It's easy to feel helpless in a way. And what you're presenting, I believe, is a way through that,
Right.
and a way to connect vibrantly with much more in life. It's very inspiring, the work you do, and you're speaking about future offerings. Is there anything in particular about this next year that someone who might be interested in pursuing this path could begin with or take advantage of?
Well, I would say that even if you're very experienced, if you'd like to experience some of our more advanced workshops, you have to take the beginning workshop, and it's called the Way of the Shaman. We also call it the basic, but it's basic seems a little uh, simplistic because it's very profound. But anyway, the idea is that if you started with that workshop, and again, you can go to shamanism.org and there's a workshops tab, and you can look at things, etc. But I would say that after you understand how to journey, and even if you've been very experienced and but you haven't taken any of our work, for I'll call it quality control, and to make sure that everybody starts on the same page in these more advanced workshops. But we have been expanding our workshop list. We of course have all of Michael's classic workshops. And if you're interested in shamanic healing, those are the ones that you'd want to take. We have a 2-week intensive where you can get sort of all of the major healing methodologies in one place, and that's extraction healing, soul retrieval, psychopomp work, so you get those sort of all in one place. And then we have, of course, the 3-year program, and that basically is two weeks a year, usually fall and spring, for 3 years. And so it's a total of 6 sessions over a 3-year period. And that one is a deep initiatory practices. People who take that come out, changed. But it's a big commitment for people because we really we want you have to have certain prerequisites, and you have to really be committed to working with the spirits and doing these initiations. And so and amazing changes take place there. But we've also had amazing changes take place, people taking, workshop series. But if you're interested in some of the things about making change, these are a few that that I guess under my watch, because shamanism's maturing too. We continue to grow. Michael's classic workshops are as effective today as they've ever been. So we don't mess with those because they're quote perfect. They give people, because the idea of them is that they provide possibilities for you to have your own experience. That's the idea. They're not telling you have to do it this way, but we give people what they need to be able to grow into it. But the more recent ones, where what we're really looking now is that now that we have the humanity has some, and the West and the East have some awakening to to using shamanism contemporarily. We have programs like the Inspired Global Change, and then I'm hoping the Personal Transformation Workshop will also go well, but that's only one offering right now, which I'm teaching in California soon, because we experiment. We make sure that, does this work? Do people get what we hope they get out of it? Do they get the teaching that they need? And so I guess I would just recommend that if you're interested in shamanism, you could, as a trial. We have an online presence now, and that, of course, came directly out of. We've always had a problem, not a problem. We've always thought about, well, we don't necessarily want to go online, but with the COVID, the pandemic, um, it became pretty clear that the world was shifting in a lot of different ways. And of course, there are safety issues, etc. So now we have a full lineup of online workshops that do not duplicate Michael's classic work, but they're all based in his work. They come out of his work, and the experiential, the practices, like how to journey, is doesn't change. It's your interaction with the material that makes it yours and makes it change. So I guess that those are the kinds of things that I would recommend if people are really interested. And I just also want to just say a word about our faculty members. Um, I'm inspired every day by working with them. The way they are taught is that all of our faculty members, they don't get a syllabus and they go and they have to take the workshops multiple times, come up with their own outline of what they've learned, and we try to keep them pretty consistent. And before that, they can teach the workshop. So they have to take it multiple times. And of course, and they start in the order in which they can offer the workshops, and they're maturing too. And then as you teach, when you first start out, it's like anything else. It's not that you are not really good at teaching, because we're teaching methods, but you get a richness and a depth of experience over time. Also, because our faculty members have to be practitioners, they have to have a shamanic practice. It's not a business in that sense. It's very much um, a personal transformation, and our faculty members do this primarily because they love the work. It's made a difference in their lives, so they have a lot of experience to offer. Even the newest ones, they love it, and the spirits know that, and so the spirits show up for us when we're teaching. So
I know you love your work, Susan.
I do,
I'm
yeah.
not a compassioned, helping spirit, but I can tell that you.
Yeah.
What I'm impressed by, of course, is that you've taken Michael Harner's work, you've adopted it and preserved it, keep offering it, and then you're evolving the work
Right.
and letting it change with the times. And think of how many people you've brought into the non-ordinary reality, and
Right. Hmm.
what impact they're having, not only in their communities with their client base, but with their own personal transformation and with the shift of the global reality as well.
Right. Well, we build on a beautiful work. Without Michael, I know I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. And about he just was a very, again, he was perfect for his time. He was a very educated man, a very detailed man, a great writer. But he also was. I My first experience with him is I went to a basic workshop, and I guess it was '96 in San Francisco, and I lived near San Francisco, so that was nice. So I went there, and I just was sort of amazed by how he could be so matter of fact, and then in the next breath, like somebody would be telling their experience in one of these journeys, and he would say, well, did they say anything to you, or did they, what happened there, so it was like we knew there were two realities, but he was very facile in both those. He could, and there was no conflict for him. And in some senses, there is no conflict. It's a matter of you being able to make your own connections. And his genius part of it was too, I think, is that he realized that we weren't trying to create dogma, or a kind of a religious organization or whatever. What we were trying to do is connect people to their own soul's journey, their own soul's purpose, and connect them with the spirits so that they could live their lives in the way they were meant to live their lives, not the way we said they should live them. So there are very few rules. You know, but there are some principles, you know, like everything being alive, everything being one and interconnected. And then the whole issue of permission is just permission. That kind of permission is essential, so that you are not using the spirit's power for something that is harmful, you know, or that ultimately can be harmful. So you learn the hard way sometimes with these. So
Thank you so much, Susan.
mhm.
And
All right.
I'm ready for an experience.
All right. So I just wanted to suggest to all of you that one of the core principles of both shamanism and I think life in general is that everything is alive and has spirit. And when we're talking about this, it's not just humans and animals and trees and plants and all of that, but rocks. And then lately, we have a workshop we've been doing online. Part of it was because to show people how effective it can, shamanism is beyond space and time. So you can learn very readily through, I'll call it computer means. And it's nice that we had these, particularly during the pandemic when we couldn't get together in person. But this one is what I'd like you to do. It's just going to be very short. And this is something that you can think more about, and then you can try it with multiple kinds of things. So what I'd like to do right where you are, where you're at home there, I would like you to look around to your space there where you are and find some sort of an object. Okay, it could be a piece of art, it could be like a little statue. It could be some sort of a rock that you have. Not one of your animals. Don't do it with something living here that we consider to be mammal, you know, kind of thing. But find something. And I would say not using your computer and stuff at this point because those are more complicated. But so, for example, I have this little rock that sits there. There's a little smile on it. But anyway, when you're into shamanism, you find yourself being attracted to a lot of things. So anyway, so find something like that, okay? And then what I want you to do is, because one of the basic principles is, as I said, everything is alive and has spirit. So I want you, this is also a little sensitive thing here. So what I would do if I was gonna, I want you to commune with whatever object you've taken. Don't take something like a photograph that has other people in it. Okay, then we just get complicated there. So take something like that. It could be a stuffed animal. All right. Anyway, I want you to take that, and then I'm going to support you with just a little bit of rattling. But for just a moment, I want you to, you can close your eyes if you like, and I want you to sense, not with your eyes or anything, but with sort of with your spirit. I want you to sense if you can make contact with the spirit of this item. And um, and if you want to you're sort of sensitive, so like if I'm connecting with this, I'm doing that, and then my first connection is it okay if I connect with you? Can I connect? Can I see your spirit? Would you show me your soul, your spirit? Okay, so you're going to get a little permission, and then you're going to ask and see if you can connect with and feel. Don't ask any questions, just sense it. Just sense the spirit of the thing and see how it feels to you. You know, sometimes they feel really, they have what we would consider to be emotions, but not the way we do. But anyway, so I'll just let you have that little experience. And so we're just going to take like a minute. I'm going to support you with a little rattling. And then after it's finished, thank this, if the spirit showed itself to you, thank the spirit, and then fully disengage. Feel yourself back fully in your body. Okay, here we go. So find your little object, and here we go. I'll just sort of join you while I'm here. Okay, so just make sure you're disengaged. Thank the spirit if it showed itself to you. And that's just a very, very short exercise. But if you are interested in how shamans perceive the world, you can try this with just about anything. Okay, as long as you make sure it's permission, don't do people because you have to have their verbal permission to do any looking in on them. Okay, no people. And actually, animals are, you can do it with animals too, but you also ask their permission. You sense, you say, is it okay if I commune with you? And they say yes or no. So that's just the kind of thing that you start to do and start to learn and to start to be with in shamanic practice. And then, of course, shamanic practice, there are two aspects of that. That's the healing aspect. And then there's what I call the divinatory aspect. And divination basically is essential these days. In fact, that we've been really trying, sometimes people think, well, divination is kind of like whatever. It's not trying to predict the future. It's getting answers from the spirits. It's knowing how to connect with them to get useful answers. And so, both of those aspects are quite important, and some are drawn to one over the other, and some do both. And so, anyway, I hope that that was an interesting little exercise for you and gave you just a little bit of maybe joy or hope. Because everything's in there, and most of it is pretty happy, you know. So, all right.
Thank you very much, Susan, for introducing me to my new friend.
It's true. That's a problem with shamanism. It's because, but so those of you who do commune in that way, if afterwards you're not going to be communing anymore with it, you can ask it. Okay, I think our relationship is through here. What shall I do with you? Where would you like me to put you? So you find a nice place in nature, or you find some place that the spirit is agreeable to. So it's like anything, treat everything with respect. So,
I like this
all right.
aspect of it, Susan, that it's a conversation and
Mhm.
a mutual agreement and a living relationship.
Right. That's the way the world is.
So, for people who want to contact the foundation, could you give the website once again?
Sure, it's shamanism.org. So if you look up Foundation for Shamanic Studies, you'll see that, but it's shamanism.org. And there's a contact form there if you want to contact people. So, if you want to contact us for anything, but there's a lot of information on the website too. So, you can also email us at info@shamanism.org. Okay, and that will be then distributed to the appropriate person. But I encourage you to look at, we've made it, we've tried to make there's a lot of information on the website, and we're in the process of trying to make it a little bit more accessible to people because it's been there a long time. But there's a lot of articles, videos, all of that. So if you like some of what you've heard about this, that's one of the best places to get information on core shamanism, because basically Michael started it.
And you're continuing it.
And
And
I'm continuing it. I'm doing my best to continue it.
absolutely, yes.
All right.
And you're encouraging us to pursue our dimensions as well. I appreciate that so
Right.
much. I want to mention your gift. I want to mention your gift, Susan. And
Okay.
I'll read a little bit, but then I want you to comment if you would.
Okay.
You generously offered the gift of an article you've written, Shamanism and Personal Transformation, which appeared in Shamanism Annual, and I believe you're the editor of that each year. There you have it. The subject matter of your piece relates to how shamanism can help us mature and transform as individuals, leading to a better world. And if I might quote you, I love this quote, so I hope you don't mind me saying
No,
your word.
please go ahead.
Each of us has a significant contribution to make in this lifetime, something we care passionately about, something that speaks strongly to the heart. When we engage with the deep desires of our hearts, joy and inspiration flow in our lives. We transform ourselves one soul at a time, and the whole world advances. Wow.
So when I write, I do a lot of writing, so it comes to me, but oftentimes things like that come through, and I think it's the spirits speaking, not so much me. So that one still touches me. I wrote it, but so hey, what? I brought it through.
Perhaps your teacher helped you with it. There's no telling
Yes,
what might
yes.
have influenced that work.
Yeah. And can I share one more thing from that article?
I hope
Because
you
this is
will.
from Michael. I wanted to say, if you go to shamanism.org, you can see there's a movie, a documentary, The Way of the Shaman, and it's free to watch. So you can just click on that and you can see the story of the development of this, plus Michael and his work. And I'm in it, and Sandra Harner's in it too, because she's been a wonderful, they really co-founded the foundation. So here we go. But at the end, Michael says, shamanism is a way to multiply your opportunities of solving problems, of asking for healing for the planet, getting in touch with all the beings of the planet. This goes beyond compassion. That's a wonderful path. But in shamanism, it's not just being compassionate for other beings, other animals, plants, the planet. It's becoming one with it, so you feel compassion for it and yourself at the same time. We are working in concert with the agenda of the compassionate ones. It's much bigger than just us. So that's
Beautiful.
our
And
philosophy right there.
there you have it.
So,
And that's in the article as well.
yes,
All
that's
right. So
quotes in the article. Yeah.
this is part of your gift. And
Mhm.
please scroll down for those of you who are watching, and you'll find a link right there. So, Susan, thank you. Thank you so much
You're
for
so
joining
welcome.
us. Um,
Well, it was a pleasure and a privilege, and I love the opportunity to talk about our work because I think it's inspiring and people can use it.
well, and you're an important part of the summit, a great contributor to it. And if I could briefly summarize, and then I want you to give a final uh,
Okay, sure.
talk, if you don't mind, is that I love these concepts that all is one, that we or I am not alone, that's all is alive and has spirit, and that there are compassionate helping spirits available, and that when we learn to work with these compassionate helping spirits, we naturally evolve toward even greater service in our lives and in our communities. And because all is one, um, the world transforms. Would you say that those are good summaries of a part of your work, or what else would you like to say
Well,
about your work and your
that's a
cause?
beautiful summary. I think ultimately that's what we're about. And I think, if you just step back to the I'll call it the immediate dimension here, that it's not an ultimate goal to be that. In other words, we start off, but you start off by connecting. You connect with the spirits, you connect with nature, and then as you do that, as you say, you start to have a greater appreciation and compassion, not only for, as Michael was saying, not only for the planet itself, but for ourselves. We are in a challenging dimension, and we're also in a challenging phase of this dimension of reality. And so this allows us, in some senses, I think, to move forward in life in a graceful way. And it doesn't, it even knowing how to journey, whether you actually, take other classes or decide you're going to be a healer or whatever, knowing how to journey gives you a source of personal wisdom, a source of personal connection, of personal help. It's like having the wisest spiritual human that you could have advising you. And as long as as you do the ethics and you use this understanding and this for wisdom, those spirits will continue to inform you and help you. So take a first step, and it's not for everybody, but I would encourage you to experiment by taking a first step, even if it's just, I say, would take the first training workshop. That would give you an idea of, is this for you? Is it not for you? Whatever. So just begin. That's the thing.
Thank you so much, Susan,
You're welcome.
for sharing, for all the work you are doing in the world, for your inspiration, for all of us. We really appreciate your work.
Well, my pleasure. And thank you also, Wake, for your good questions and for also the conversation. It's easier to talk when you have a conversation. So thank you.
You're welcome. And to you, our summit audience, thank you for being here together, experiencing the history, wisdom, practices, and vision of Susan Mokelke and the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And we look forward to visiting again for our next interviews around the cosmic fire. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.